this meeting tonight is a reflection of that effort. So we'll have reports from our squad leaders in different counties, as Ty said, and we'll discuss how it's going. I mean, this is challenging work. It's hard work, but it's exciting work. And there's a lot of community around just learning together, learning how to make a difference together. And then, as Tai also said, now the national, mothership, as I call it, the Climate Reality Project in Washington, D.C. is encouraging national, federal action by different chapters. So we'll hear more about that. And at the end of this, we'll have breakout rooms where you get to know one another within your county and then make plans to meet again and take on the next 90-day challenge. So there's a lot in that. We have developed a bunch of tip sheets and guides for your work that the leaders may refer to. And the good news is we're not in this alone. We're in this together, and we have a lot of teammates that have learned a lot of good things and in making productive impact. And so that's the meeting that you're a part of. We're delighted that you're here, and happy that we're setting off to hear some of these stories tonight and look forward to making new ones. So. Let me stop there and turn it back to you,
Matt. And so let's have Contra Costa, then Marin, Sonoma, and then Solano, and then San Francisco. So we'll go in that order. We're basically going to see if the reports can be about 4 to 5 minutes, and then we'll have 3 minutes of questions of each county, and then we'll go to the next one. So about 7 to 8 minutes per county would be awesome. So Lynda and Brenna are going to kick us off from Contra Costa.
Contra Costa squad had a total of 9 meetings. We met every other week, and we had 10 to 15 people attending each meeting. Our theme this go around was electrification. And we had enough members within our squad from El Cerrito and Lafayette that we were able to start working more directly in those communities. So in Lafayette, we strategized, and we had a meeting with 2 of our council members where we explained to them what was possible for our community. And they are looking to do this work through the environmental task force. So they asked if we would give a presentation to the environmental task force. So we did. We gave a 30-minute presentation to them, and the feedback from both of these events was really terrific. It's really positive, and it looks like our community is very motivated to start working on this, and we plan to continue working with them. El Cerrito also met with 2 of their council members, and they are continuing to work as well towards enacting electrification reach codes in their community. We are aware of the environmental justice issues as it relates to this. For the most part, we're looking at focusing on new building in our communities, but it's a very important issue with existing building stock, and there are local communities that are starting to do the work in that area, and we're keeping up with it so that we can be aware for the future as well.
And I guess building upon that, some of the other work that we've been doing in Contra Costa County is on the fringes. A lot of these 90-day plans, you'll find policy. I worked for the federal government for 21 years at EPA. Things take forever. And when you try to do something locally, it can also take a very long time. So on the fringes of that, we are keeping an eye on general plans. So every city has a constitution, a Bible, or a general plan that drives all other policy. And those are only updated every 10 to 30 years. And it's a great opportunity when they're being updated to make sure they're really robust. And we want to make sure that climate action planning is in there, and equity and environmental justice are in there. So kind of on the fringes and others, and I'm glad we got all you new members, and I hope you'll join us. I'd love to give you an update. We developed a toolkit with Greenbelt Alliance to help demystify what is a general plan, but how do we get electrification in there? But how do we also get clean energy in there? How do we get all these other things in there? And two great deliverables that we had in the last few days was we did go to, well, I'll be honest, I went. This is a great example of how only one public comment can make a difference. I showed up at the last hour at a Martinez City Council meeting. They passed a climate emergency resolution. And my comment was to add some language about electrification, banning natural gas in new buildings, like Brenna says we've been working on. And voila, Martinez agreed to put it in there. They amended their motion, and they also agreed to go 100% electrical for MCE Deep Green. So every little bit that we're doing counts, and you know, that's we welcome people to join us in Contra Costa County. We have 7 cities updating their general plans, and we're working one by one to get those climate emergency resolutions passed.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenna, and thank you, Lynda. Any questions or observations, reactions from the group?
Can I speak?
Sure, Shirag, please go ahead.
I'm a new member. I actually am based out of San Ramon. So last council meeting, we are actually like also a group of youngsters I'm talking with, youth people who are doing the Fridays for Future here in San Ramon. So we sent out a agenda, like what we think should be in the climate plan. And in that meeting, like they just give a public comment time and nobody responds to that. How do you make sure that the city responds to your needs? And we had like at least 4 or 5 people show up talking about our actions.
Okay, Lynda, you want to reply?
I do. I'm a former mayor in Moraga, and if an item is not on an agenda, they cannot respond to you at that time. It's important that they hold
something
a
to
public
agenda?
hearing. What's that?
How do you bring something to agenda?
I'd be happy to talk with you, but what you did is how you start the process, and we follow up, and a lot of patience, a lot of persistence until they put it on the agenda and have a public hearing. And I'd love to help you with that, but don't be surprised that what occurred is exactly what will always occur, especially to your new members. You think no one replied to my email, nobody answered me, they just stared at me and moved on to the next thing. But that's common, and that's the process until we can actually help you have a public hearing.
So there was another point, like they gave somebody a new general plan. They're starting a new general plan and climate plan. And they haven't even done 10% of what they did in the previous climate plan.
That also, unfortunately, is very common. Even the city of Brentwood, for example, says that they will develop a climate action plan in their general plan. And they're already doing a general update, and they never even touched it. So at least you got 10%. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of pressure.
I'm saying like the whole previous plan has no actions on it. They said so many things. I read through like 500 pages of document. I mean, it's not a simple thing.
It's not. It's very complex, and I'd be happy to go through with you and try to help get a measurable outcome for you. That's why we put them in these 90 days. And keep working forward step by step.
And here we have at least very strong residents who are like very motivated. So definitely we should talk.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, you'll have time in the breakout session at the end of this. You're in Contra Costa County, Shirag?
Yes.
Yeah. So Lynda's in. You'll see Lynda in the breakout for Contra Costa, and definitely join the local meetings, because those will be more opportunities to get into these type of details. And that's what you're talking about is definitely the things we're working on. So welcome aboard. All right, great. Any other quick questions? Maybe have 30 seconds left for Contra Costa before we go on to the next one.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Mark.
In Martinez, you said they put electrification in their emergency plan. Does that mean they commit to developing a whatever it is that will, you know, a law or regulation or whatever on electrification?
Yeah, what they committed to is actually the exact same language that the Board of Supervisors committed to. I copied and pasted in at real time. Some cities don't allow you to use a chat, but Martinez did allow a chat. Real time, I cut and pasted the language that the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors passed is a commitment to develop plans for electrification for all new construction, and they amended their motion and passed it with the same language that we have for the Board of Supervisors.
They'll probably have to do a reach code of some sort, right, in order to implement it?
That's a good question. We've got some fact sheets out there and learning more and more how cities are going about it. Most seem to be going with a reach code, which basically says they extend the California codes or reach them further. But some cities actually have done policy. So, you know, the cities are going to decide how to do that. We didn't specify that in the language. It just specifies that, you know, whereas there's a climate emergency and be it resolved that the city will develop and will ensure electrification of all new buildings.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Let's go to the next group, which is the Marin Sonoma squad. David?
Yes,
Or
I had to
Robin?
unmute myself. Thanks, Wei-Tai. So in Marin and Sonoma, we actually have 2 active squads. I'm going to report on each of them. Each one meets 2 times per month, and typically we have about 15 attendees at our meetings. So the first one I'm going to report on is our building electrification squad, and we formed that a little bit less than a year ago. And it's focused on getting all Marin and Sonoma jurisdictions to adopt all electric ordinances for new buildings. And we're doing this through a number of means: direct outreach to elected officials, to staff, to various county agencies, and also indirectly through climate action plan updates, which Lynda had mentioned. It's a great tool when jurisdictions are doing that. We're also participating with other organizations to urge the California Energy Commission to adopt all electric for all building types in the 2022 code cycle. In fact, I participated in one of those meetings just 2 days ago. In the last 90 days, we have several accomplishments I want to mention. One is we're considering taking on a new topic, a tandem topic with getting jurisdictions to adopt all electric ordinances. And that is to get them to adopt an ordinance for use of low carbon concrete in all concrete uses in all buildings. We just recently got some information on this. It's a big deal. Turns out Marin County has already adopted such an ordinance, so it's something we think we can spread throughout the county and also in Sonoma. And we have a couple of good success stories since we last met in this group. Petaluma adopted an all-electric ordinance. It's the state of the art, using the California Public Health and Safety Code as its basis. And Fairfax is inched closer to adopting an all-electric ordinance as well. And we pretty much got the county to commit that they will adopt an all-electric ordinance no later than January 1st, 23. So good success there. And I also want to report one success from our last meeting where we were all challenged to come up with social media handles. We came up with a lot of different ideas and we settled on one that I'm going to share. I'm going to say it slowly first. It's called, and then I'm going to say it more quickly. It's Let's Kick Gas. Now say it normally, let's kick ass. That's our handle. And we've registered in all media outlets we could. So, okay, now I'm going to move on to our electric vehicle squad. Our electric vehicle squad formed almost 2 years ago. It's focused on accelerating the adoption of EVs. And we're doing this through a whole lot of activities. On the policy front, our main work has been around getting local jurisdictions to adopt AB 1236 or become compliant with it. That's a state law passed several years ago that requires all California jurisdictions to adopt a number of features for streamlined permitting of EV charging. When we formed this squad, only 2 of Marin's 12 jurisdictions were compliant. Now, just last month, the last of the 12 has become compliant. And that's virtually entirely due to our efforts. And also just recently, one of the last 3 remaining Sonoma County jurisdictions became compliant. We're also working a lot with Drive Clean Bay Area on a number of outreach and behavior change initiatives to get people to adopt electric vehicles. And we're also working with state elected officials to try and influence some legislation. So report out since we last got together. I just mentioned the AB 1236 adoption, the last of the 12 Marin jurisdictions adopting that. And we've also been supporting Drive Clean Bay Area, a number of outreach events. And one thing I'm really happy to report about, we just got notified about 2 weeks ago that the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, which is the state agency that tracks compliance with AB 1236, selected our little Marin Sonoma EV squad for an award they issue periodically. It's called the ZEVI Award, and it's for community groups that are really championing EV adoption. So that's going to be in their May newsletter.
Yeah, we got to give you a round of applause here. You're recognized by the state of California. Way to go.
So anyway, that's my report, and I'd be happy to try and address any questions if I can.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, the floor is open.
I'd like to point out that all those actions are not complete in all the jurisdictions within Marin and within Sonoma. So we're kind of starting to make a matrix of checklists. So if any of you are from Marin or Sonoma, we'd love your help kind of getting the rest of the boxes checked off. You know, just we can pick a small action. Let's just do a climate emergency resolution for the town of Ross and take that one on and complete it. And many of these are quite doable. It just takes focusing on it. So if somebody wants to get involved in a short-term action, there are quick things available.
Great to know. Thanks, Robin. Other questions, comments?
I've got a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
What, David, when you said that the cities have adopted ordinances, is this the REACH code, or is this done through an ordinance, or how is it accomplished?
Yeah, so, and I hesitate, giving expertise on this with Lynda on the call, but I'm going to go for it. So the policy tool that municipalities have to adopt things like this is called an ordinance. So they adopt an ordinance that takes some sort of policy action that then may cause a change, for example, in their general plan or their building code or wherever it lands. So in this particular case, both around like adopting an all electric ordinance, that they actually pass an ordinance, and then typically the content of that ordinance lands like in their local building code or something like that. But ordinance is the tool. It's an interesting thing, just in a nutshell. The US Constitution, if you've ever gone, it sounds like Lynda has, when city council members get sworn in, they swear an oath to the US Constitution. And that's because the US Constitution sets out legal authority for the federal government and the states, but it does not get down to counties and to local jurisdictions, cities and towns. It's the state that delegates some authority to cities and towns and counties under their constitutional authority. And the tool that the local jurisdictions use is they pass ordinance. They can't pass legislation and laws because they don't have that authority. Lynda, was that about right? Mark, did I answer your question?
Well, you did, but I'm wondering, does the ordinance itself specify electrification, or do they have?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's the way it would be. It would have the very specifics. So if it was, say, an ordinance adopting an all electric requirement for all new construction, it would have all the specifics. It would have all the findings that they made in getting to this ordinance. It would have the specific provisions in it. It would, if it changed any of the city's current like building code requirements, it would list what's changed and what the new one. It would be very specific. Yep. And there's plenty of examples of those. You can go to any jurisdiction that's adopted, for example, an all electric ordinance. You can drill right in and get all the specifics of those ordinances.
All right, thank you. Paul, you got a question?
More of a comment.
Sure.
Because the question is it a REACH code or not? And I think on the electrification, a REACH code is when you're doing something focusing on efficiency and energy efficiency, and specifically focusing on energy related issues. San Francisco did theirs in terms of a health and safety issue, and therefore it's not a REACH code. And that's significant because this plays into what sorts of other review the ordinance is subject to. So there are several different ways of doing it.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that clarification, Paul. Let's continue to move forward then. In the interest of time, let's go to Solano. Bonnie?
Hi, everyone. I'm reside on the original land of the Patwin people in Fairfield, and I lead the Solano squad, although we've had some Napa folks join us as well. So we're happy to have Napa. We're right next door. We've been working, I mean, I feel like things are just blowing up. I mean, I feel like those fungus that live under the soil that the trees all communicate. I mean, that's just what's happening. We're just having such a web creating right now. It's almost too much to keep up with. The thing that we were focused on, we meet monthly, the fourth Monday of every month. So we met last night. One of our main focuses right now is that BACMed, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, is considering amending Rule 6-5, which is to put scrubbers or technology on the two refineries in Contra Costa, Chevron and the PBF refineries, which would take 70% or more of the PM 2.5 out of their emissions, which would greatly improve the Bay Area air quality, as well as, you know, it is a climate justice issue because a lot of the folks who live in Richmond next to the refineries are devastated by what the refineries are doing. So we are working with county supervisors. We met with Supervisor Wagenknecht over in Napa regarding this. He's on the air quality board, and we have two members from Solano, so we're reaching out to them as well. So again, I'm going to put a link in the chat for the list of the people on the board, because there's two people from Contra Costa and all over the Bay Area. If folks want to get involved, they can reach out to me about more information. So we're working in that area. We also met with one of our supervisors around appliance electrification regulations on the air quality board as well. We're also, last month we had Elizabeth Patterson, who's part of our group. She is the former mayor of Benicia, who is quite an expert on the Delta. And she gave us a Delta, Sacramento San Joaquin Delta 101. Yesterday, she talked about other local water issues, and because it started out of the Sassoon Marsh, where Sunset Exploration wants to uncap a gas well in the protected Sassoon Marsh to do some exploration. And so we responded with, a number of letters to the U.S. Corps of Engineers. The Sassoon Marsh is one of the largest, wetlands in the Western North America. And, but anyway, so water issues are really a big thing for us, certainly the Delta. And we are going to start a subcommittee, which Elizabeth who is the former mayor, she's going to head that. We also welcomed about a half a dozen new trained people, which I'm just thrilled about. And we also update on legislation and action we can take on climate related legislation. And I think that's that. We have a lot, we do a lot. We stay engaged with, we have a number of local elected people on our team, and a number of council members, as well as school board and college board members. So we're really excited about how we are growing. We've got almost 100 people now on our mailing list. About, maybe about 20 people, 15 to 20 people show up at our meetings. So anyway, it's been an exciting time. Anyone have any questions?
I have a question for you. You used to be going after microgrids. Is that still on your radar?
Absolutely. You know, we're following. So Senator Dodd, who's in our area, he just, I think it went to the Senate. It's going to the Senate floor, SB 99, which would allow community microgrids. Absolutely. We are also doing, you know, monitoring our local climate action plans. You know, Fairfield is coming up with a new general plan, so we're engaged in that. So there's I mean, like I said, we have so much, there's so much going on. But we're just keeping an eye on what's going on with Senator Dodd's bill, and I think that would be a game changer if we can have clean community microgrid for resiliency.
All right, thanks, Bonnie. Any questions for Solano and the widening Napa YOLO group? All
Hey,
right.
Bonnie, this is Matt. No, I was wondering, you know, like Robin was reporting about how you know, you had discrete activities for new members and things like that. How are you guys looking at that, you know, of weaving in new members in your activities?
Well, you know, I mean, we just had our new members last night, but I was thinking about that today. I thought, because we stayed late on the call yesterday, like we only went an hour, we went an hour and a half, and then other people dropped off who aren't trained or have trained in the past or whatever. But then a lot of the new members stayed, and we had some discussion. We talked about the boot camp. I think Gary's going to do, hopefully coming up. And I also thought about maybe we'll connect and have a separate little Zoom meeting and talk if they're, you know, so we can support. The other thing is we did a climate presentation to one of the newly trained people and myself. We did it together for the Benicia Progressive Democrats. That was last week. So we gave an hour talk to them, which was very successful and well received, with Maggie Koch, who was just trained this past month. So anyway, we're doing so much. It's really exciting.
That's great.
Thank you.
You are like the fungi. Okay, last question from Nasli is, who are your allies for protection of Susan Marsh?
Oh my gosh, even the Attorney General of the state of California wrote a letter. One of the supervisors, Monica Brown, she has written letters in opposition. You know, certainly, you know, we work closely with other groups, Climate Health Now, with the Bay Area Air Quality Management Board District, and you know, so many different groups. We're just, again, we're making all those connections. We're really working on that, and just building this climate movement. We're going to bring Solano up to speed with the rest of the Bay Area. So that's all.
Okay.
That's our.
Bonnie's going to do it. Thank you so much.
Surpass you guys.
All right. Whoa, you're throwing down the gauntlet here. We love it. Yeah. Okay, San Francisco, you're up next.
All right. Thank you. We have been quiet in terms of meetings. It's been an interesting winter and spring. However, like the fungi underground, we are still working. Via the San Francisco Climate Emergency Coalition, and this was the one newsletter we sent out with a call to action to call or email your supervisor to restore the cuts that were made to next year's San Francisco environment budget, and also to use the actual surplus. They thought that San Francisco would have a deficit, but in fact it had a surplus, and to use either the surplus or the some of the Build Back Better funds coming from the federal government to fund what's needed for the climate emergency, to sort of start a climate fund, because currently there's all sorts of intentions on the books, but no funding to back it up. We did, in the fall, we passed a all electric new buildings ordinance, as Paul said, through the health and safety code, which was over a year in the making. Which takes less funding because it's actually cheaper to build all electric than it is to build a dual fuel house. Because if you say it's a gas home, that's ludicrous. Nobody in the Bay Area who is housed at this point, I believe, lives without electricity, or we really hope that's not the case. So like, it's a dual fuel situation if you have gas in your home too, which is more expensive. But in any case, so San Francisco has developed a new climate action plan, as some other counties have, and now we need funding to implement that and the other resolutions under the Climate Emergency Declaration, which San Francisco passed in 2019. So that's our sort of chunk of things we're doing with the San Francisco Climate Emergency Coalition. There's also a Healthy Ecosystems Coalition, which is looking to, I should say that we did meet with every supervisor except one. That's 10 out of 11 supervisors had meetings with us regarding funding for climate action during this spring. Second work we're doing is on getting a hearing on how to implement the cap, because as of this point, it's a thing, but nobody knows how, like what it would actually take to implement that. So figuring that out is the first thing to making it actually happen. And that we're working with, hopefully it's starting to gather with a group, including Wildfires to Wildflowers, Literacy for Environmental Justice, Yerba Buena chapter of the California Native Plant Society, Nature in the City, and others. Specifically looking at environmental justice and jobs in the implementation of the climate action plan. And then the third thing that San Franciscans and people from all over the Bay have been doing, and I wish Alma was still here because I would pass the torch to her to talk if she wanted to, is that there's a collaboration with Green Action and other groups on waterfront safety, which includes in San Francisco, Bayview, Hunters Point, and Treasure Island, which were contaminated during World War II by radioactive waste and have since, in addition, been contaminated by heavy industry in the area. So those are kind of the three things that are in the works. And then Matt Richardson spearheaded Climate Reality Project Bay Area's. Matt Richardson is one of our San Francisco members. Participation in the effort to get newly appointed Senator Padilla to sign the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge. And Padilla did sign that pledge on April 29th. So that was a success. So I think I'll leave it there for questions, unless Paul has anything that I missed to add. Okay, I'll leave it there for questions.
Where's Paul? Paul, are you?
Yeah, nothing to add. No, Helena's covered it brilliantly.
Yeah, it sounds like you were very sleepy this quarter and did nothing, obviously. No, you talked to 10 supervisors. That's pretty good. I would like to see what your active quarter looks like. We know you guys are rocking. All right, questions, comments for San Francisco. We've got some kudos here from Tehran, thanking you for your hard work. All right. If not, so actually this segues nicely into our next discussion, actually, because when you started off by saying, you've had a quiet time, and Matt started us off by saying we all work on these 90-day plans. The idea was that we would work in spurts of we would not work 52 weeks a year because we're all volunteers. It's pretty hard to get a large group of people to work all year round on stuff. And so our thinking is that rather than thinking that this is a year-round effort, that we would do it in chunks of time, 90 days, take a break of 30, 60, 90 days, but then go at it again for 90 days in bursts and just come together in bursts. So we wanted to, now that we've been trying this for about 18 months now, or 2 years, we wanted to have a little discussion about that. And I want to invite David Muller to sort of frame it up for us, what the issue is and what type of discussion we could have about our 90-day plan. So David, could you help us?
Right, next week. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Whoop. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Really? Okay. All right, go try again.
Oh, there we go. All right. There we go. Can people see that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So actually on mine, hang on just one second. There we go. So Wei Tai kind of teed this up, but the discussion item is really about how to merge these two concepts. So the policy action team, as he explained, adopted this 90-day action plan concept. And it was, as he explained, it's really so that climate activists can jump right in and quickly have some impact, not get burned out, just make something happen. But what we've seen is there are at least 5 squads that have formed under that concept that are still in play, and that they've taken on much broader and longer term policy action campaigns that take years to achieve. And so it sort of keys up this question here. Let me see if I can move this thing out of the way. It sort of keys up a couple of questions. And I think we've got the right group of people on the call tonight, sort of a mix of veterans and new folks. How do we mesh the concept of a 90-day action plan with the reality that it often takes a lot longer to enact policies? And as kind of part of that, how do we best integrate new members, leaders who are coming in with these long-standing squads that everyone knows each other, and you got these long-term campaigns and so on. So that's really what the issue is, and what I'd like to do, if I can do this, and I think I'm going to have to go back out of the presentation mode to do this, is just start talking about this. Like, what are your thoughts about how we mesh those two things, and how can we onboard new people where they don't feel lost in an ongoing squad? So with that, I'm just going to open it up, and I'm going to try and kind of capture ideas as we go along. And Wei Tai, I'm going to ask that you call on people because I can't see everyone at this point.
Okay. Who's going to be brave? Paul, go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, so I think the first thing is that the idea of rolling 90-day plans, that you start with an ask and you've got 90 days to develop the ask and make the ask. But then the next phase is the follow-up, bird dogging the supervisor or the department head, building public support. And then you've got a third 90-day. So you have a series of discrete actions that you can take place over time, and different people can join in and engage at any point.
Great. That's a great concept, Paul. Other thoughts?
Who's some of our veterans working on this? I'll call on Lynda and Fred. I know I've been working on this. And Robin, go ahead.
I think that if you can maybe identify an individual or some individual in an existing group to be welcoming to the newcomer, maybe to make that follow-up phone call to find out what their strengths and their interests are, so that they come back. That there's this problem when somebody shows up in a Zoom room and they're a little overwhelmed by the topic or the size of the room, or the not size of the room. Maybe it's too big or maybe it's too small, and don't quite know where they fit in. If there's someone who can welcome them and identify where their interests lie, that maybe you can take advantage of that more clearly. And along with that is sort of a buddy system concept, which also helps. Nobody really likes to do things all by themselves.
All right, thank you, Robin. Oh, Fred?
Yeah, my thought is that a goal or outcome that might take a year or two to accomplish certainly has steps along the way. And so it would require some sort of kind of thinking about what are the steps that are needed to achieve a long-term goal. It may be some kind of public outreach, and so that can be a short-term project within the longer goal. And then the next step might, I'm not sure of all the different steps, but I'm sure with some thinking that you could come up with a more discrete, shorter goals that in the long run accomplish a more long-term goal.
Great, thank you. Are there others out there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think what Fred said is kind of what I have in mind, and I think that you need to have some of both. I mean, even on a city council agenda or something, you'll have continuing items. So, you know, within the 90 days, and to identify what those measurables are, it could be a measurable as simple as attend 3 meetings in the next 90 days. It doesn't have to be pass a climate emergency resolution. So I'd like to see the 90 days continue without breaks personally, and within those timeframes to keep the momentum going, have both, you know, measurable goals with the eye on the apple out there also at the same time.
Thanks, Lynda. Angela.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like the concept of the 90-day action because it's focused and everyone's working towards a goal within a set time frame. So it lights a fire under folks, and it also just helps you know, narrow what we're trying to work on. Like climate action is so broad, there's so many things that we could focus on. So I think there's a lot of value in just honing down to one thing. And then I'll just add another thought as new members come in. I think it's important to, and I think this happens naturally, but important to encourage new members to figure out, you know, what are they good at and what skills do they bring in to the table, and align their tasks with what they're good at and what they enjoy doing. Because I think that's a good way to kind of keep the momentum going. If people are doing tasks that they either enjoy or are good at, it's a good way to kind of keep membership up.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. And Shirag, newly trained climate leader. Love to hear your voices.
Okay, I'm not trained. I have been only on the Saturday first meeting. And when I was in that meeting, I think it was barely few minutes. I was able to talk to somebody. And again, main thing I saw was like, I mean, if you miss the training, the other training is almost 6 months away. So
right.
somehow what we should, like when we say, one thing I saw missing in this group is, I mean, I'm an outsider talking as a like commentator. When I joined, I was not aware like how many people are there. Somehow we can say like in Contra Costa, we have like 100 people, right? That would actually motivate the new member to be a part of it.
Right.
And some of the one other thing what we do, my background is IT. So in software, what we do is like we typically keep a list of tasks, and whoever is capable of doing the task, they can pick up and they can say, okay, I'm working on this task. Somehow we can have the list of issues that the squad is working on or the whole group is working on, and they can get engaged into those particular groups. And I would happy to like think of some kind of structure in that.
Wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, just to emphasize that the Climate Reality Bay Area chapter is open to all members of the public, whether they have gone through a training with Mr. Gore or not. Everybody's equal and everybody's welcome. And we know everybody can help and contribute. So please feel like everybody here is an equal and part of it. Tom Williams.
Get unmuted. New to the area, obviously, and new to the Climate Reality Project, but I've been doing lobbying at federal, state, and local levels for a long time, and as a wind energy professional. And one of the things that we used to always do is we would reach out to every environmental lobbying group that we thought was an ally and who were professional lobbyists as well, or real experts in particular fields, and just offer up the fact that we were willing to show up if they needed us. So the thought, what that leads to, and I'm sorry if this isn't really concise because I'm bad at that. The idea that for newcomers, if you have some people who are really, really passionate and have committed themselves to an idea or a project over a multi-year period, and you just invite newcomers to show up with you when you're talking to government, when you're talking to the public, that's a great way to get people involved in the details and let them find out what the niche is that they want to fill. And that's how I got involved in it 20 years ago. So almost a mentoring idea, and mentoring by getting people directly engaged in a meeting or going to a town council meeting and just letting them get familiar with what that experience is like, because there's a learning curve there, definitely. I think that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Well, David, we could go on for a long time on this.
Yeah. No, this is great. And wait, Ted, I really appreciate you stepping in. I didn't anticipate the thing that I wouldn't be able to see who was raising their hand. But I want to take a quick look down through these. We've got some really good ideas here. And there were a few other ideas some of which were expressed and not, but Robin and I sort of brainstormed around it. But a few ideas we had: existing squads identify potential 90-day actions that can be assigned to members with appropriate guidance. So literally chunk them out. When you see something in your squad it's a nice, discrete thing that somebody without a lot of background could do, is identify it and hold that in reserve for when someone shows up, you can do it. Existing squads help onboard. We've heard that from others. And in our squads, we actually developed an onboarding guide. One of our new members came in and said, I'm lost. You guys ought to have an onboarding guide to help me know what's going on. And we've done that. Several people have commented that it helped. Existing squads share key talking points and Q&A with new squads and 90-day action teams. That's one of the hardest things, is to get up to speed, get your expertise up. But we've developed a lot of it. We should do better sharing it. And then what's come up several times, identify people's strengths and interests and connect them with those things. So I think these are some great ideas. One other theme that I've heard clearly in these comments is people like the idea of retaining the 90-day action plan concept. Don't abandon that just because a lot of times it takes longer. And I think maybe what we need to do as a team is, when we talk about that concept as a 90-day action, is characterize it more along what several people have said, is think of it as a step, perhaps, in a longer process. There may be some actions that can be done in 90 days, but most are going to take longer, but you can still take a substantial step. So I think, Wei-Tai, going forward, and that, it's how we characterize that 90-day concept. We may want to characterize it a little bit different. Any last thoughts?
Any other thoughts?
Anyone?
Okay, no, thank you for teeing that
All
up.
right.
It's, we've been at it for 18 months, so it was well worth taking a pause and re-looking at that. And certainly we can't solve it in 15 minutes, but that was a lot of good ideas that came out just now. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I was going to have us, each squad, also report what's your next steps in the next 3 or 4 months, like your next 90-day plan. But I'm going to suggest that you do that in the breakout sessions when just with the groups that you're with, and so that we can turn the floor over to Karen Harrington to give us an update on our new federal campaign, Our Climate Moment. So Karen, could we transition over to you and have you share the latest and greatest? And you're on mute, but we see your slides.
Okay. Okay, everybody sees.
Yep, and we hear you.
Okay, so Our Climate Moment. First, welcome new members. It's great to have so many new faces. And I'm here to introduce you to the newest climate reality project campaign, Our Climate Moment. Let's get to work. So this is an exciting opportunity for chapters and for you to engage at the federal level. So please put your questions in chat and we'll have a chance to take a look at those. So first, a quick review. This next slide, I've been giving presentations since 2017, and I have never used this slide before, but it seemed appropriate tonight just for the contrast. The last 4 years, we've had constant climate denial and setting back of any environmental progress that we have had. Until today, now we see a new face. The most progressive climate president we've ever had. You know, the election last year, my mom said, you got to vote for Joe. And I said, I don't know, but she was right. He fills me with optimism. So our job as climate reality leaders is to encourage him, to push him to pass bold and sweeping climate legislation. So why now? Why is now our climate moment? Well, we have an administration that is deeply committed to significant climate and climate justice action. And we have a climate-friendly majority in Congress. So 2021 represents an unprecedented opportunity for the type of sweeping response the climate crisis demands. However, midterm elections are less than 2 years away. And we all know that what could happen and the climate orientation could change. So the next 2 years is a narrow window where big moves can and must happen fast. It truly is our climate moment. So here is what we're looking at. Our climate moment has 5 pillars, 5 policy priorities: a just transition to clean energy, zero carbon transportation, climate justice and public health, building green communities, and protecting democracy. And we're already seeing lots of legislation that address these pillars. An example is the Thrive Act that is just brand new. It's an ambitious transformational economic recovery package, and it includes our pillars here of 1 through 4. Another one that we're looking at is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, protecting our democracy. And of course, that is pillar number 5. So bills before Congress are ambitious and they need our support. So the Bay Area Policy Action Leadership Team has established an initial goal for our chapter. At the federal level, we'll meet with every congressional office in our geographic footprint at least once in 2021 with a timely ask related to our climate project identified priority. And so we have a good core team that's begun working on this action. And this is just a screenshot of one of our tools. And you can see along the bottom here, each of our congressional districts has their own sheet. This happens to be Barbara Lee's. And you know, you never have to go it alone. You don't have to have experience in meeting with your member of Congress. We will go in a group. We had a meeting scheduled this morning with Representative Barbara Lee in collaboration with 350 Bay Area Action. And it was actually pretty disappointing because 5 minutes before the meeting, it was canceled. It was an unavoidable situation. It's rescheduled for Friday, so we're going to move forward. But you know, that's kind of what we're up against. It's these busy offices making time for us. It was a little discouraging. But we will continue. So our climate moment has measures of success. The first is to pass a green infrastructure bill. And we've seen Biden's bill that started at about 2 trillion and is approaching 4 trillion now. And then piggybacking on that is the Thrive Act, which is looking at 10 trillion over 10 years. 40% allocated to frontline communities and zero carbon emissions economy. We're looking for 100 meetings with federal officials. These can be our members of Congress and administration and agency leads. And 200,000 contacts with members of Congress. And I think we've got a great start with chapters around the country. So here's our local Our Climate Moment team structure. We have 5 key positions: legislative coordinator, researcher, events coordinator, communications coordinator, and collaborations coordinator. So just briefly to give you an idea of what those positions entail. The legislative coordinator. This helps to establish legislative targets with guidance from our Climate Moment staff, track progress of those targets, and develop a communication plan also, and to also report back on how those meetings went and to submit a report. So researcher, how will a particular federal legislation impact our region? Why is it important? Why should our representatives care about it? And how will it impact where we live? Events coordinator, organize and plan logistics for events to promote our climate moment. And this would include meetings with members of Congress, tabling as we get back out in the community, and virtual recruitment events. And communications coordinator, publicize our wins and our actions taken in our ongoing work, track our contacts with federal representatives, keep our climate moment present on social media and in chapter publications, encourage others to write letters to the editor, and coordinate actions with our Bay Area Communications Chair. And then lastly, collaboration coordinator, track and communicate with local climate change organizations and liaison with those groups to set up meetings with Congress to research legislation and share communication strategies. So the Climate Reality Project team is collaborating on a national level, but we have the opportunity to collaborate locally, as currently federal legislation is a priority for many climate organizations. It's clear recognition of the urgency to pass climate legislation now. And again, one of the tools that we have developed, this is how we're going to track our collaboration with different agencies or different organizations in the community and what bills they're working on, what districts they work out of. And I think we've got a great start with 350 Bay Area and with Indivisible Sonoma. And we will be building on that work. So this team, I think, is an exciting opportunity to move our nation forward, to be a leader in developing a sustainable and just future, to impact what happens at the federal level. So what does it mean to be on our team here in the Bay Area? Well, we meet twice a month. We're asking our team to meet with their members of Congress. And again, you know, you're not going to be thrown out there by yourself. We work together. And to participate in actions guided by staff and support the legislative agenda. So give some thought how you would like to participate as a member of the Bay Area our Climate Moment team. I know that you're all engaged and that you're all busy people, but I think this is just so critical. And again, as my mom would say, if you need something done, ask a busy person. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking you to reach deep and to commit to joining this team. You know, our chapter is the largest in the country. And I think we have the opportunity to make our climate moment really have some impact at the federal level. I think that's terrifically exciting. So reach out to me. I will put my email and my phone number in chat. We'd love to have you come on board and to meet the team. And I'm certainly available to talk and about how you feel like you might fit in and what your skills are that you could bring to our team. And that is my conclusion.
Thank you so much, Karen. You've done an amazing job to organize all of this in just 10 weeks since this is launched. You've been so gracious to be our leader. When you said asking a busy person to help, that you're the busy person we asked to help. And what an amazing amount of organization and definition of how people can get involved and sign up for roles. So I would encourage everybody here, even, particularly new people that are joining us, to take a role in helping Karen. So let's see if there are any questions here. Ken Strong, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I asked this in chat, but one thing I've struggled with this federal legislation is we're sitting here in California with 2 Democratic senators and some progressive representatives who have already supported this. Calling Mitch McConnell's office is not going to be particularly helpful at this coming from California.
Right.
So I'm just struggling with what we can do as those out in the West Coast to try and move this thing forward in Washington.
Right, and that's that question actually comes up a lot, and it's a good one. There's a lot that we can do talking to our representatives and certainly to our senators also. One is to thank them, to let them know that we're part of their team, ask them how they would like to see us engage. What can we do to move this forward? We're climate reality leaders. We have a lot of information, and we have access to a lot of information that we can share with our representatives. So I think we can bring added value to what is already people who have an informed and active climate agenda. We also can encourage them to be leaders with their colleagues. You know, how can we push further and harder to get this moving at the pace we need it to go? And there's also areas in the Bay Area that are not quite as progressive, and we have a senator from California who is not as progressive as we would like to see her. We have a meeting set up with Senator Feinstein in a couple of days, actually, with Indivisible Sonoma and 350 Bay Area Action, and she needs to be encouraged to look at this as something that is an emergency that we need to push forward. So I think we have a lot of work to do to move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question,
Karen. Thank you, Ken, for the question. Paul.
Thanks. So related to this, one of the things that we're finding in San Francisco as we're looking at existing building decarbonization is we have layers of constraints and regulations, both state and federal, that constrain what can be done at a local level. And I'm hoping we can, through, if we're going to actually engage on this local, our climate moment issue, have some broader discussion among the group about what these issues are and how we can raise them with our elected officials as things we would like them to work on. I know, for example, from Feinstein's meetings with Feinstein's office, they are asking, how can we frame it in terms of what California needs? And so Feinstein's office has been really clear. I've met with them with a couple of other groups on how can we craft an ask to the senator that supports California. She's much more likely to engage when there's a California specific focus. Pelosi, I think, won't engage because as speaker, she doesn't take a leadership role in terms of introducing or driving things. And Padilla has been, I mean, he signed the No Fossil Fuels Act. He's clearly wanting to do stuff. So he's a good person to talk to about these sorts of things. But I think we need a broader Bay Area discussion so that when we go in, we're coherent with an ask and understand where we're going. So I just think there's real opportunity, even if we can't influence other senators, to set the stage for our representatives to understand what they need to be asking for, introducing in ways that I think at national federal level, I don't see that recognition yet.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Karen. Just in the interest of time, we're at 7:42 here. And Chirag, just hold up 1 second here. I want to go into our breakout rooms here because we're going to break out into 5 rooms basically. And those who would like to continue talking to Karen about our climate moment can continue to do that for another